Well, it's the post-game show that I didn't want to have to put out, but nonetheless, it's the post-game show that I will put out. What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, pre-recorded today. This podcast, as of now, is being recorded as of Monday afternoon. So it is October 6th while I'm recording this. This podcast will be pre-recorded, released October 8th, which October 8th is a very busy day for me, which is why I am recording this ahead of time. Granted, I really love going live. I really love providing the live experience for the Bills fans, and I love interacting with the Bills Mafia, of course. It's my bread and butter. That's what I love to do. But for the sake of my schedule, which has been crazy lately, last Wednesday, I wasn't able to do a preview to this game. And I apologize for that. But I got to pay the bills, right? And as much as I want this podcast to pay the bills one day, it's not doing that right now, right? Especially in comparison to some of the other projects I'm doing and working on, and the coaching and things like that. So greatly appreciate you guys being patient with me. I'm going to make sure every single week, live Wednesday at 8, from here on out, that I am live Wednesdays at 8. So I appreciate you being patient. Just wrapping up my work day here, hopped on. It's a rarity. I want to throw this out there. It's a real rarity that I come on this show without a hat on. It's probably the first show I've done without a hat on in probably 3 or 4 years. I just realized that as I hopped on here. My hair is not looking too bad. Not looking too bad, right? Still got some on the head there. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let it rip, let it fire away. And this is the appropriate day to do this. So, and it's great because this game is fresh, super fresh in my head, right? And it's fresh for a lot of reasons because it was only last night. But the Buffalo Bills fell to 4-1 at the hands of the New England Patriots, and it was on Sunday Night Football. So I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share here. That's why my mouse is moving, my hands are moving here, as I kind of get a screen grab of the statistics from last night, just going over this game. Make no mistake about it, this was a frustrating loss. And before I do that, of course, the show sponsor, 26shirts.com, for all of your Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Sabres, Buffalo sports gear. Please go to 26shirts.com and you'll be able to purchase a quality item. I got that right up in the corner for a reason right there. 26shirts.com. Make that happen. Okay, so 26shirts.com, obviously they've done a lot for this community and given back, and I think it's really great to have them overseeing them as a sponsor of this show. So Thomas Take Sports Podcast, very well myself knew that quite possibly this day could come where the Buffalo Bills lose a game. Going into this one, they were the only remaining team left in the NFL that was quote unquote undefeated. So there was a lot of, okay, when will they falter? Will it come sooner or later? When will they fall apart? Did they really fall apart last night? By the score sheet, 23-20, they didn't necessarily fall apart. Did they show up fully? That's another question that I think is a worthy one. Did the Bills necessarily show up last night? I don't think so. The version of the Bills that we've seen, weeks 1 through 4, did they show up against the New England Patriots last night? I didn't see that version. I saw a different version that I haven't quite seen this season, which is what led to the loss. Not only have I not seen this version of the Buffalo Bills this particular season, I haven't seen this version last night that we saw against the Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots, against any team, Buffalo Bills against any team. I haven't seen the Bills turn the ball over this much in a game in recent, Bills history. So much so, I was, looking back on, these last few years, turnover-wise. What did that look like? When was the last game the Bills had this many turnovers to start a game? When it was a long time ago that the Buffalo Bills had this many turnovers in the first half of a game. And Sean McDermott talks about it all the time. When you lose that turnover battle, you're more likely than not going to lose the game. And the offensive mistakes, the fumbles, the interception, pivotal in this game to give the New England Patriots ample opportunity, extra possessions with the types of turnovers that the Bills had last night was extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. The only difference in this game, a 23-20 score that, really amounts to one or two possessions. And when those one or two possessions, this game is a one or two possession game in particular, that's what's got me feeling like had the Bills not turned the football over at the level that they did, this was a game that they could have and should have won. But more than that, you look at just the stat sheet, which we're going to do right here, right now. Very tough to do this the way that I want to. Let's do this here. Can we do no version of me? Can we do just a full? Okay, there we go. So going to get a little audio. I'm going to take my face off the screen for just a second for those of you that are watching this on stream. So we're just going to look at the stat sheet here. Scrolling down, player stats, we'll do that, okay? So passing game leaders, passing yards, Drake May, 22 of 30 for 273 yards. Over to the right here, Josh Allen, 22 of 31, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing leader for the Buffalo Bills. This is bad. This is very bad. Josh Allen, 9 carries for 53 yards. Travion Henderson, rushing yards leader for the New England Patriots, 6 carries, 24 yards. Ramondre Stevenson had 7 carries, 2 touchdowns rushing. Receiving yards, Stephon Diggs, the return of Stephon Diggs, he had 10 catches for 146 yards. And Dalton Kincaid, 6 catches for 108 yards. Now, going to the rest of the team stats, this is what I really love to look at. 363 total yards, 338 to New England, 118 rushing yards, 71 to New England, passing yards 267, passing yards 245, yards per play exactly tied, 6.0 first downs. New England 21, Buffalo 25. Third down efficiency, Buffalo was 5 for 9. New England was 3 for 9. Total plays, 61 plays for Buffalo, 56 plays for the Patriots. New England's quarterback, Drake May, was sacked 4 times in this one. But the tail of the tape for me is the penalties. 11 penalties for 90 yards, whereas New England had 8 penalties for 93 yards. Time of possession, I said on Sunday sessions that if the Buffalo Bills led in time of possession, that they would win this game. And they did lead in time of possession, and they lost. So it's just been a real weird look back. So we look at these Buffalo Bills stats. James Cook had 15 carries for 49 yards, averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Dalton Kincaid was the stud of the night, 6 catches for 108 yards. Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman responsible receiving-wise for 2 Buffalo touchdowns. James Cook, no catches, no yards. This is something that I've talked about these last few weeks. James Cook is as dynamic a playmaker in this offense as any. Why is he not getting his fair share of touches, total touches, not just rushing attempts in between the tackles or outside the tackles, stretching it out on a toss, on a stretch run. Why don't we get James Cook the ball via the passing game? Chris Collinsworth was even smart enough to mention that last night. And then defensively, Terrell Bernard led the night with 6 tackles. Shaq Thompson had a quality sack. Deion Walker notched half a sack. Cole Bishop, half a sack. Greg Rousseau, a sack. So, and AJ Epinesa, half a sack along with Deion. And then you have kicking on the day, Matt Prater, 2 for 2. 45 was his long. Mitch Wishnowski, 2 punts for 70 yards, 1 inside the 20 and averaged at 35 yards per clip. So to me, this game was not necessarily about the Bills, coming up short necessarily. It's how and why did they come up short? And when I look at some of the areas that have kind of plagued the Bills this season, areas of concern for me is the defense. Now, what areas of concern are on the defense for me? For me, I'm concerned about the defense for a few reasons. The defense is one that, as you look at it on paper, we've got Terrell Bernard, we've got Ed Oliver when healthy, but that's my first concern. Terrell Bernard has been banged up. Matt Milano, again, has been banged up. Ed Oliver's been out of the rotation for the last couple weeks here, which is a huge area of concern for me because Buffalo really needs him out there. He's so pivotal to the middle of that defensive line, especially with a quarterback that you're facing against that can move, right? Drake May can definitely move the ball via the air and with his legs, much similarly to Josh Allen. So when I look at this defense as a whole, it's young or old. There's very little guys on this defense. The in-between is few and far between. The guys that are in their prime is few and far between. And that's a concern for me. The secondary in particular, I've talked about it the last few weeks. I was not a fan. I will, come right out and say it. I was not a fan of the Trey White signing. I did not think that the Trey White signing was one that was worthy. I felt like it was lazy. I felt like it was one where the Bills knew they needed to add particular pieces to their defense, and just so happened that Trey White was available. He knows the defense. He knows the city. He knows the organization. So they feel like it's just a fit in terms of fit, which it is a fit in those terms. But you forget to mention that Trey White has suffered those 2 debilitating injuries that ended 2 of his seasons here in Buffalo. And yet he is brought back after an extremely down year, bouncing around the National Football League between the Baltimore Ravens and the LA Rams. Trey White is not a starting week-to-week corner in this league anymore. The Bills know that, though. And it goes back to needing players to make a return, needing to get healthier. And that goes as far as the secondary. It goes as far as just the entire roster as a whole. When you look at the active and inactive report, and I will pull it up on the Buffalo Bills PR Twitter, I look at this, all the time. I look at this, every week on Sunday sessions. I look at it, even after the fact. And it's really, really concerning for me. Really concerning. I will pull it up here just to make sure that we get it, all set. And I get fans are really frustrated with this loss because I felt like this was a game that they easily should have won. There were some moments where they looked like they were clawing their way back into it, and it was just too little too late. There were some moments where the defense definitely should have been able to make that pivotal stop, and they just could not do it. They just could not do it. I can't get it pulled up. It's having me log into Twitter. So, but I'll just rattle off, the names like Maxwell Hairston. He's got to be ready. If this kid's not ready now, then something is just not right. He's got to get ready, right? He's got to be ready, primed and ready. It's week 6. Buffalo's defense really needs him. And that's another area of concern for me, is the fact that Buffalo's defense is so banged up. They need this rookie corner to finally make his debut in order for their defense to feel whole again. They need that kid out there ready, willing, and able to make an impact, because they can't rely on Trey White. Dorian Strong, he's on IR now. He's out. Matt Milano, he is banged up with a pec injury. Now, Dorian Williams was inactive this past week as well. So Dorian Williams needs to be ready next week if Matt Milano is not, because we have Jimmy Charlo and Joe Andreessen. With all respect to those guys, they've busted their tails trying to make this team in a third string capacity. They're not starters, right? They're third stringers. They're backups. They're not, plug and play against the elite of the elite guys right now. That's not to say that they can't be in the future, but right now they're certainly not. So this defense has moments where you see the potential, and then it's just gone. Joey Bosa had a great first 3 weeks. Last few weeks, not so great, right? These last 2 weeks, not so great. But needing to get healthier is huge. And then there's, plays, 2nd and 2, single back set, Ray Davis behind Josh Allen, 2nd and 2, Ray Davis gets a yard. It's like, okay, if you're going to get your opportunities, Ray, I love you, but we got to do better than that. We certainly have to do better than that. Needing to get healthier is essential for this team. This team has got Michael Hucht out, Larry Ogunjobi out. I can't wait to see what they bring to the table once they are officially, back, ready, willing, and able, and healthy. What will they provide to this team? It remains to be seen, right? But I would like to think that will make the Buffalo Bills defense better. I'd like to think that we get to a point of pride with this defense again, to the level that it needs to be. The run defense has been terrible. The run defense has been one of the worst facets of any defense for Buffalo that they've had in quite some time. And for whatever reason, this is a nut that they just can't crack, that the run defense has not been adequate in years, in a long time, in a long while. They can't seem to get on the same page, no matter who they bring in, no matter what they invest. They can't seem to get on the same page as a run defense, and that is extremely frustrating. I mentioned it. Travion Henderson didn't light the world on fire once he filled in for Antonio Gibson. Ramondre Stevenson didn't light the world on fire either. He fumbled, but when he got his opportunities in the red zone, he put it in the end zone twice on seven meager carries. So that is extremely frustrating, okay? And it's extremely frustrating to lose the way they did to the Patriots. In terms of how this looks for the AFC East outlook now is interesting. Now it changed. And did it change in the way that I think? Well, it changed enough, because the Bills just lost their first game of the season to a fellow AFC East opponent that they play twice a year, that they've been arch rivals with for a very long time, and an AFC rival nonetheless that has a lot of promise on their team with a promising quarterback. Now, do I think Drake May is the second coming of Jesus Christ, like ESPN has lauded him one day after this game? No, I do not. Do I think Drake May, though, is a quarterback that has talent and has the ability to make the Patriots better, in the coming years? Yes, I do. I liked Drake May coming out of college. I didn't want him to go to the New England Patriots. He did end up a New England Patriot, and that bodes not as easy for the Buffalo Bills as Mac Jones or Cam Newton or these quarterbacks that the Patriots have had. I can't remember any other ones off the top of my head outside of those three: Drake May, um, Cam Newton, and Mac Jones. But Drake May is the best version of a quarterback that they've had since Tom Brady. And I'm not saying he's Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, but he's the best version of a quarterback that they've had since the retirement of Tom Brady, or the departure, I should say, of Tom Brady. So Drake May did what he needed to do. I can't take anything away from the Patriots. I really can't. They played a hell of a game. They slowed the game down. They forced turnovers. They played Buffalo in a sense that no other team has, really, in the last, X amount of weeks. I'm going back. Like, when I say X amount of weeks, I'm not talking about this season. I'm talking about since the divisional round against KC, or pardon me, the AFC Championship game against KC. That's the last time the Bills lost, right? And that was a long time ago. That was January of 2025. It's October of 2025. Granted, you had the offseason in there, but you get my point, right? It's been a while since the Bills have looked like they did last night, particularly with the turnovers, as I mentioned. But the AFC outlook now, Buffalo 4-1, still in first in the division. But the Patriots 3-2, scrappy. This team is scrappy. They're physical. They're led by a pretty solid head coach that I felt like should not have been fired from Tennessee. A guy that I thought should have been in New England a year ago. New England elected to hire Gerard Mayo. That blew up in their face. They finally decide, we're going to bring in our former, outside linebacker, Mike Vrabel, bring him back into the fold. Once a Patriot, always a Patriot. And Mike Vrabel coached a hell of a game. Coached a really tough, durable, gritty game that forced the Bills to play the game that Mike Vrabel wanted them to play. So good on Mike Vrabel. Now, it's tough because you didn't just lose to the Patriots. You lost to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs goes off last night. This was the best game that Stephon Diggs had in his career post leaving the Buffalo Bills. This takes the cake. 10 catches, 146 yards. He was crucial in this game for Drake May. Drake May looked at him early and often. And there were a lot of Bills fans that talked a lot of smack about Stephon Diggs leading up to this game, leading up to last year's game against Houston. The departure between Diggs and the Bills was bitter. There's no doubt about it. There's no debating it. The only thing that we can kind of debate is why or how, what made this happen, what made the best quarterback in the league and one of the league's most dynamic receivers decide to part ways. Well, we'll never know the exact answer to that. I'll never know it, despite being in the know, I think, as well as I can be. You'll never know it, despite, wanting to know it, right? But he decided to part ways. They decided to part ways. He moves on. He goes to Houston, tears his knee. Then the Patriots say, you know what? We'll take a chance on this guy. They didn't come light either. They gave him his money, right? They said, we'll take a chance on this guy. Not many people are willing to sign the bottom line with a young quarterback. This guy is. He's interested. So we should reciprocate that and give him a contract that keeps him here and will probably make him retire a Patriot, I'd assume. The end of his career will be this last stop here in New England, which is a shame. I think his last stop should have been in Buffalo. I think he should have rode off into the sunset with Josh Allen as the best statistical duo that the Bills have ever had. For a 4-year stretch, 2020 to 2023, they were the best duo, quarterback wide receiver duo in the National Football League. Both guys have respect for each other for that, for what they provided to each other. But the media likes to just make it diva wide receiver, franchise quarterback, just couldn't get along. I think there was a lot more to it than that. And dare I say it, I think we learned what those things were last night. Stephon Diggs has gone off statistically. He's gone off verbally on just his tenure in Buffalo. Without naming any names, he's been extremely frustrated, even while he was in Buffalo, over the lack of victory when it matters the most, over the crumbling that has bubbled at the surface within the coaching staff in crucial moments, in crucial games, in crucial moments of a game. Stephon Diggs, I think, had just had enough. And without getting into the weeds on why Stephon Diggs is no longer a Buffalo Bill, why I did a little bit get into the weeds on that is because it does matter to the story of this game. I think Stephon Diggs was motivated more than ever to show up in a stadium that he hadn't played in quite some time and prove his worth. Prove that he's not the guy that dropped a crucial pass against the Kansas City Chiefs in Ralph Wilson Stadium, Highmark Stadium a couple years back, but prove that he was the receiver that Josh Allen could rely on for 4 straight seasons, and now he's the receiver that Drake May can rely on for however many seasons Stephon Diggs decides to continue to play. This receiving weapon is a huge benefit to a young quarterback. Sound familiar? It should. He was younger as a Buffalo Bill, but he was supporting a younger quarterback than him and Josh Allen. Now he's playing with an even younger kid in Drake May, who's got very similar attributes to Josh Allen. So from an agent standpoint, that 10% that Stephon Diggs finds for his agent, he'll be happy to pay it to him, because I think he found an actually great fit for the talent of his career that I don't know if this will continue. I think I'd venture to guess that Stephon Diggs won't have a statistical output the way that he did in this game against the Bills, because he had that massive chip on his shoulder. But Diggs did what Diggs always does. He found a way to get open. He stretched the field a little bit with some deep routes, deeper intermediate routes, sideline routes, and had great tricks in his bag, so to speak, as far as the post-catch moves. That's what made Stephon Diggs so dangerous in last night's game, and that's what made him so tough to stop for a secondary that needs all the help that it can get. So when I look at this, next week, my final thoughts on this, when I look at this, okay, and say that they fall to 4-1, they lose to the Patriots, you know what? Every dog has their day. Yesterday, the Bills they were flat. They did not play complementary football that Sean McDermott talks about. They limited their chances in this one, bell to bell, pillar to pillar, post to post. And there's no doubt about it, they were still within striking distance of winning this game. So am I worried? No, I'm not worried. Do I think that the division just got a little tighter? Yes, because it did, and that sucks. But Buffalo faces off, against the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night. So I'll be sure to give you guys a live pregame show. Of course, kind of previewing some things here. I think that with the run defense that the Bills have shown, Monday night could potentially be tough, but I do think they'll bounce back. I'm going to go 34-24. Buffalo bounces back and gets a win over the Atlanta Falcons to move to 5-1. But look out, Bijan Robinson is on his way. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Of course, I'll be back next Wednesday at 8. Of course, tough way to lose our first game of the season, but it's off our back. There's a loss on our record. We can move on, and we can get focused and get ready for the Atlanta Falcons. All right, sayonara. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas